Since your campaign last year, instant runoff voting, IRV, has become a hot issue. I would like to see it expanded to the city council races and even statewide. What is your position on instant runoff voting, and what are the prospects for expanding it?
Well, I am a big supporter of instant runoff voting, or IRV, because it does a couple different things. And it's an interesting process because it's not just Burlington's mayoral process that uses IRV. This is a pretty wide-used wide-used system throughout a lot of Western democracies. And frankly, actually, the union I work for, I wish we had IRV within our own electoral process, because one of the major reasons that IRV is a great system is that because, frankly, it's more efficient and it saves money. So, for example, within Vermont NEA, our union, we're a membership of about 12,000. So when we do elections for our president and for our officers, we have to mail 12,000 ballots out to all of these folks. And last year we had 3 candidates for president, 3 or 4 candidates for president, but no one achieved 50%. And we don't have runoff voting within our system, so we had to do a second mailing for a runoff, and it costs an excessive amount of money for this. When if we had instant runoff voting, people could have ranked their candidates. And for us, it would be our presidents, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, you would take out the lowest vote getter, and then everyone's vote would be counted, because those votes would, those other people's second or third choices would be pulled in. And we wouldn't have had to run another election, and we would have saved, at least our membership, lots of money. So on a micro way, that's what Burlington has. And last year in Ward 7, there was a runoff for city council out there. And the problem with, on a kind of a broader level, is the same thing with our union though, is that when you have a runoff, not only does it cost more, but you almost every single time have much lower voter turnout. You almost cut in half how many people come out for that second election, because it's not on a normal day and people forget to vote and may not think it's that important, or whatever the issue might be. And so today, with less than half of our eligible voters voting anyway, I think that IRV is a much smarter way to make sure everyone's vote is counted, better use of our resources, and certainly encourages more voting than setting up another system that would get triggered and have even less people participate, on the second time around. So I'm definitely about a supporter of the IRV, and I definitely think it would be great to expand it, so that when, not that it happens frequently, but if there were several candidates within a city council race that, or no one gets 50%, that there's some way to trigger within that one election a way to have someone elected that would achieve a majority. So I think it's a smart system, and I have a hard time thinking about the downsides of IRV.
It's not just a money saver, it's also much more democratic than what we have now. And it could be expanded to the governor's race and to the state house. I lived in Sweden for a while, and they have proportional representation there. And in the legislature, there are 7 parties represented. Some have only 5% of the vote, that's the minimum, and some have 30%. But if a group that only has 5% of the vote tries to run in one of our elections, they're called a spoiler, and they have no chance of winning anything. By comparison, if you compare the IRV or the proportional representation with what we have, I had the feeling that, well, we don't have democracy at all. If minority opinions can't be represented or even heard. I wonder if the reason that some people oppose it is that they don't really understand it.
I think, to me though, it's a really it's a simple concept, and so maybe the there might be some education concept here, but it's just a ranking system. I don't understand how. Well, I guess it is different than just picking one candidate. It is a ranking system, but at the same time, I think if people learn that is indeed what we're just talking about, that they will understand it quite easily, because it's really you can vote for that one candidate, or you can rank your candidates. Either way, it's fine to vote that way. But as you said, in the end, it's going to be much more democratic, because let's say that the let's say that I really dislike the two dominant parties, but my vote's still going to count somehow, because if I choose to rank candidates, one of my rankings will get counted into the system. Whereas if I didn't like, the Democrat or the Republican, I'm kind of out of luck, because my vote won't really ever matter. I remember the first election I ever voted in was the 2000 presidential election, in terms of a federal race, and I voted for Ralph Nader. And did my vote count, like in the concept of the world out there? Not much, because it wasn't for one of the dominant parties. So in terms of making sure that everyone's voice is counted in a very democratic process, IRV allows that to happen. So for me, if we're really trying to have the best system where people feel empowered in the system and have even more reason to turn out and vote, IRV will encourage people to do that.
During the last mayor's race last year, we had a handout for IRV to try to explain to the voters what it was all about. I think this needs to be distributed more widely in the city. But some of the questions, what is instant runoff voting? And the answer is, it is a voting method that determines the majority winner, no matter how many candidates are in a race, by giving voters the option of ranking candidates in order of choice. It combines a regular election and a runoff into a single election, thus saving money, as you pointed out. And another question here, how are the votes counted to determine the winner? If no candidate receives a majority, greater than 50% of first preferences, the instant runoff retabulation will be performed. The candidate with the fewest first choice votes is eliminated, and their second choice votes will be distributed to the remaining candidates as voted on the ballot. Well, if we think about this, for instance, in the 2000 election when you voted for Ralph Nader, Nader was much more closely related to Al Gore philosophically than to George Bush. But your vote, because he was essentially a spoiler in our system, by voting for him, that really helped George Bush. But with this system, when it became evident from the vote count that Nader was not going to win, your vote would have been taken and gone to your second candidate, which I imagine would probably have been Al Gore. So instead of helping Bush, you would have been helping someone you cared about.
Just for the record, Ralph Nader didn't spoil that election. The Supreme Court handed that to George Bush. So let's just be clear about history, about what really happened there. A lot of people's votes didn't get counted at all because they were, spoiled and hanging chads and all of that. So just for the record, it wasn't all Ralph Nader. It wasn't Ralph Nader's fault, in my opinion. I think we had a Supreme Court that was really ready and stacked and encouraged to do the wrong thing and make a really bad decision. So
yeah, we still have a Supreme Court.
We do.
But nevertheless, if we had instant runoff voting, it would have helped.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Last Sunday, Matt Dunn said that he had changed his position on this issue, and he now favors instant runoff voting. He explained that he thought the problem had been that people didn't understand it, as I pointed out. Is there anything we could do to educate Burlington voters? Like, could the City Council fund some distribution of this handout, or put it on the city website, perhaps?
Well, at the very least, I think that's something that the city can do, and I think certainly, especially when there's the next mayoral election, just as we, as voters go around, or candidates go around, or campaign workers for candidates go around, I think it would be great to get some buy-in by candidates to really do some education in their literature that they do, or have a handout that they provide at the doors, especially if people have questions, because certainly they have the forms for voter registration or absentee ballot request forms with them. So if there were an additional handout like that really in a grassroots way also got the message out, I think people will understand it even more. And I think the more rounds that we go through, which again, hopefully IRV sticks around and we have this process going forward, the more comfortable people will become. We've had only 2 elections so far with IRV, and so I think the more it becomes, standard practice, and the more experience people have with looking at ballots that have the ranking, the stronger it will become. So I think it's a combination of both time, but doing some more to do outreach.
I thought of Matt Dunn's position because last Sunday we had the state committee of the Progressive Party, and Matt is running for governor in November, and he addressed us. Last year, Doug Racine also spoke to the committee. He's also a candidate for governor.